Everyone is present and accounted for. We have a quorum. First order of business is to accept the minutes of the September 13th regular meeting.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Carrie. Visitor comments and petitions. Is there anyone here that wants to raise anything that is not already on the agenda?
Yes. Can you hear me? This is Impy.
Yes, go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yes, go ahead, MP.
Okay, I'm never clear on this, whether I've been muted or not here. Yeah, I have two questions. One is, when will the East Shore Drive be repaired so we can use our access?
You want me to answer that now, or? I don't know. I have 2 bids and I'm waiting for a third, but, I hope to know more by the end of this week. One of the companies could not start till mid-November.
Jesus.
So, I know. So that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be repaired by no later than the 1st of November. We do get snow in November. And I don't think we can use that Boardman Road if there's any kind of snow on that road, whether it's cars, and certainly Josh isn't going to go down there with his oil truck and fire trucks because that hill from McDougal's down is just too steep, too windy. And even if you got down there safely, you wouldn't be able to get up the entire hill. So I don't think we can consider that Boardman Road as an option beyond the end of October.
I don't know if there's you and Virginia Valentine and Kizzy. I don't know if the cemetery would allow you all to leave a car there. I mean, it seems like they would, but if it doesn't happen, or you can't really make people move some other place. If you had another place to be until this got done, but I hope to know more by the end of this week.
Okay. And the other thing is another road question. We're still waiting on Peter to come out and do his grading and putting down dirt. That was never done at this end of the road. He did about 3/4 of the road, and usually that work is all done by the 4th of July. Nothing's been done.
Well, I mean, I would talk to them. It certainly is not going to get done this year. He's not
Well,
gonna get over there.
I don't know why not. I don't know why this wasn't done.
I don't know, I can talk with him. I mean, I know he's busy. He's been busy.
Yeah.
We're not the only customers that he has, so he does pretty well for us, and he always has, but.
Yeah. Doesn't he always grade the dirt roads every year?
Excuse me?
Well, I thought he did all the dirt roads every year.
I
Graded them.
think he probably attempts to. I can't guarantee he gets them all.
Well, let's hope next year he starts at this end of the road because it's bad. I mean, if you drive out here and look at it, you can see the roads all coming apart. So maybe next year he could start at our end. He normally starts at the southern end and he finishes us last. But this better be taken care of or we're going to lose this road. I can't see that they did any mowing out here either. That's my only comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Impy.
Yep.
Jeff had his hand up a moment ago. I'm not sure if he still wants to ask a question.
Jeff, did you have something that you wanted to say?
I was just curious why we can't open the cemetery gate and allow that as access for them.
It's a private road. The town does not own that cemetery, and a lot of people think it is town. It's not, it's private. And that road is bender, it's pretty tender, and I realize why they don't want people going through.
I was just curious.
Well, I mean, MP raises some good points, and East Shore Drive has been a bit of a perennial issue over the past couple of years. I don't know if, as the weather, I guess, as you learn more towards the end of this week, and we hopefully try to nail down on timing, it might be worth trying to have a small group discussion with a couple of landowners there that are most impacted, particularly as the weather starts to turn, to see if there, can be an informal agreement that could be worked out for the couple of folks that are, most impacted by, by what's happening.
Yeah, I hope things would go faster, but like I said, this third person who was going to give us a bid is behind the 8 ball, so that doesn't sound well anyway, just for returning that, so.
You have to have 3 bids.
I don't have to. I mean, I'd be lucky to get 3,
Yeah,
but Bill Lane wasn't sure about this third one, and I trust him with the people that he recommended.
okay,
But one of them did say he couldn't begin until mid-November.
yeah.
So, I'll touch base with the other one tomorrow and see what their thoughts are.
Yeah, it seems if they're not committed to putting in a bid to even get on the pipeline, that we should move forward with the 2 that are interested in the project so that we can get things moving.
And I didn't really I wanted to find out for sure, and I did put it out to the town. I mean, I had heard from a couple local contractors, no way, but I just had Dave again call them today and just verify that. They just don't have the time or the manpower.
Yeah.
I'm waiting, there's one of those, he didn't get a hold of, he left a message, so, I'll talk with him tomorrow, but, so when I find out if it's just gonna be those 2, we might wanna have, unless the other one can't begin right away, then we could just look at the bids at the next selectmen's meeting.
Or is there any way to do that earlier than the next?
Well, it doesn't make sense if he can't start right away. If he said I could come up there next week, you would want to,
Yeah,
so I will see.
Sounds good. All right, any other visitor comments? All right, next up is ferry service update, and we have John King here in person.
Well, I'll try to be brief. I sent you folks an email on the 22nd, which was the day after our advisory board meeting, where 2 issues were discussed at the very end of the meeting, not in great detail. One was the tariff issue and one was the winter schedule issue. In the overall scheme of things, I think the tariff issue is more.
can I just stop you for a second and check with the, we check with the viewers that they can hear John? Because he could come closer if they can.
Can
Yes,
everybody,
I can-
I can hear him.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
I can hear him.
I can hear the dog too.
Trying to stay muted.
So, anyway, in the overall scheme of things, the tariff is probably the more important issue. And I gave you the bullet points. Just very briefly, the target right now is an increase of 18% in revenue. The discussion we had the last time I was here was allocating that between peak and non-peak to the tune of 60% to peak, or 75%, or everything, And but what we got at the meeting was this document. I sent you a copy of this. And what DOT on their own initiative has done is tried to keep the walk-on rates low and allocate more to the peak rates. But the key here, if you want to read this correctly, I think, is to go to the what it says Islesboro at the top. If you go all the way over to the right, it says illustrative, and let me caution you too. Again, this is just for illustration purposes only. We are told. But anyway, there's illustrative increase percentage June to September, so that's high. And adult round trip 7%, so they're keeping that below the needed increase. Vehicle round trips 33%. keep in mind, the target is 18. So where you're high, you're gonna see something low too. And the other big increase is trucks. Because trucks go from $4.50 rate, no, excuse me, a current rate of $4 to $5.50 off season. And $4.50 a foot right now to $6.75 peak season. So that's the truck increase is 50%. So obviously they're allocating a lot to peak season vehicles and peak season trucks and trying to keep it down for walk-ons. I don't know where that came from. I'm not sure what drove that, but this is what we got at the meeting. The other thing I asked about in the few minutes we had, this meeting took 2.5 hours and the last 20 minutes was this. So I asked about a resident rate, I didn't ask about senior citizen discount, but I think you can safely assume that they're not considering that. And I don't think there's any change being considered for the commuter rate. So, well, that's pretty significant, particularly one of the biggest things I think are the truck rates and the peak season vehicle rate, because it's almost $40. And that's not a proposal, but it's an illustration. We're going to have a special meeting in October with the Commissioner Bruce Van Note going to come down to Rockland, and we're going to talk about it. So in the meantime, we can have whatever input we so desire. Now, having said that, before I go on to the schedule, if you look at what Janet just copied, the thought thing is another skip. The first thing is just an increase, an extension of the winter schedule. But the next things I wanted to look at, because this, Gabe and I talked about this, and then this is a bugaboo for me. Back in July, we were given this MFS budget revenue analysis for new tariff. And basically what they're doing is they're projecting the operating costs for the next 4 years. I think we can safely assume that once the new tariff goes in, absent some calamity or giant change, it's going to be there for 4 years. That's the current tariff is the same way. It's just kind of like what DOT likes to do. And so they're projecting the operating costs going up to about 15.5 by 2027. They're looking for a 50% target because we get 50% of the budgeted operating costs from the state highway fund. And then the last column over here on the projected operating cost is the fare box need. So that is how much they're looking for in revenue from fare box. So that's what it costs to take the boat, and also parking revenue and a couple of other very small miscellaneous things. So the new annual fare box target is 7,316,250. The current fare box average is 6.1 million. So the annual increase needed is about 1.15 million, which is 18% more than what is being generated right now, hence the target of 18%. So if you look at the next thing, this is what we got just before the advisory board meeting, and they call this the fiscal year 2023, fiscal year 2024 variance report. It's like a P&L. It's the profit and loss, and it's as of August 31, 2023. So that's the state does not have a calendar fiscal year. The fiscal year begins in July. So it's June, July, and August. So this is the first quarter, what we're looking at here. And so, it has the revenue, which actually was very robust. It was good. It was over $400,000 from the year before, which is remarkable. I suggested maybe that might change the target, but nobody seemed to rise to that big. And then under the expenditures, there's two categories of expenditure, the personnel, and then there's all other, which is the second page. But what I would like to point out, and we've discussed this before, is you look at, they code all these line items, and under personnel services, if you go down to 3960, which is 4 up from the bottom, that is the infamous unfunded retirement liability, for which every time you buy a ticket, part of that's going to that. And it's basically money that the state did not appropriately fund for their retirement obligations. And we never get the budgeted amount for the next year until we see this particular report, the first quarter of the year. And so, as predicted by a number of people, it's very close to $1 million, 988. So, we've talked about this in the past, whether or not this is an appropriate operating expense that should be included to be compared to revenue and stuff, all that stuff is, I think, an open question. So what I did was this last page. Okay, the last page is the 1.1 million target. And then I backed out the retirement liability, or the unfunded retirement liability. And if the unfunded retirement liability was not in the formula, what I come up with is that what we would be looking at is an annual revenue increase for the next 4 years of 148,000. as opposed to 1.1 million. And which means that the tickets might go up a little bit, but they wouldn't go up a lot.
Yeah.
Which is something I just think everyone should be aware of. Because I just walked into a wall when I raised this issue, but it to me is an issue, and I think it's a legitimate one. And so as far as the tariff situation is concerned, I told everyone that I was going to come to this meeting and chat with you folks. We're gonna have a meeting with the commissioner. I said I would try to get back with feedback. And so on the tariff issue, what I'd like you to consider is the feedback I think that would be appropriate is, well, I don't know how you feel about loading vehicles and trucks. I mean, it's almost, the truck expense is almost a consumer tax, really, a use tax, because I mean, anyone who brings stuff over on the truck's gonna pass it off to the eventual recipient of the food, the gravel, the whatever, you know, I mean, that's what, so everyone's gonna pay that too. So I don't know how you feel about that allocation situation. I do think that I'm really disappointed that no consideration was given to a resident tariff. And that, what most of the other islands were in favor of that as well. I'm disappointed in the absence of an island resident rate. Why we don't have a senior discount rate is just beyond me. I don't get it. And I can't believe that they're gonna stick with the same vapid commuter situation that they have now, because there's anyone, as far as I'm concerned, unless you know you're gonna be healthy and you're gonna be working 5 days a week, you'd be stark raving mad to buy a commuter ticket. So my thought would be, well, I'll wait to hear from you about the truck vehicle allocation situation. But in terms of those last three, the resident, the senior citizen, the commuter situation, I mean, I'm really disappointed at the lack of imagination here. This is just amazing to me. And so that's where I'm coming from here, but I'm kind of your spokesperson. So this is for me to, you know, just throw it out there. Then we can talk about something, you wanna talk about that first, or you wanna talk about the scheduling situation too, cause I don't want to get back on that as well.
Just as a matter of curiosity, what did you talk about before these two issues were brought up?
Well, there was a big to-do a couple of months ago, well, not, it was actually earlier than that. There was an article in the Maine Beacon about the potential immediate collapse of the ferry system. And there was an interview with the captain on the Vinyl Haven run, talking about the inadequate pay the captains receive and the overtime that they have to work and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I try to stay kind of neutral on this stuff, but it was a little bit on the slanted side. And there were some allegations about how the state refused to enter into collective bargaining, but they finally had and dragged to the table. And as I understand it, there is collective bargaining going on now, but I don't know the details concerning that. And so a lot of the discussion involved Bill Pulver kind of going over maybe the 5 or 6 year history of what DOT had done to get new folks on both as ordinaries, as ABs, crew members, what they had done to bring the engineers, to bring everybody into parity. And this had gone up to the HR department at DOT. They have a committee that involves not only the DOT folks, but also apparently union representation and things of that nature. And there had been a recommendation about that and upping some people and not others. Well, everyone got upped. The captains did not get upped as much as some others. And then there were other things. There was an incentive program initiated. Actually, I found that was rather lengthy, but it was fairly compelling. I mean, I think DOT did a great job over the pandemic trying to attract and keep people and keep the thing running. And there were a lot of canceled trips. We didn't get hit as bad as some of the other islands, but I think they deserve credit because they use their state government is not the easiest place in which to get things done. And they, I think, used almost every tool available to them. So I think they deserve it. So that was lengthy. And then it's just, you gotta deal with scheduling and island specific stuff. And it just took a long time. But if you want to sit in for me at the next one.
Impy, did you have your hand raised?
No,
Oh, okay. Let's take the tariff first, separate from the schedule.
I think that, oh, good.
Has there been any other discussion, or do you know any more about like what the total amount of money that the state is short on this unfunded retirement is? And if not, like, could you figure out what other services are funding this gap? Because I'm just wondering, like, $1 million, like, I'm wondering if, like, are toll booths also helping to fund this, or is it
Well,
sort of like,
the MTA is a whole different entity.
they're not,
A separate entity.
but they wouldn't be?
So the issue becomes, the ferry service is somewhat unique. And it kind of depends upon the department. The Department of Conservation with the state parks and stuff probably derive revenue. I mean, they, have the state parks, they cost money to get into. They got the inland fisheries and wildlife, so you've got, your fishing and hunting licenses and things of that nature. Now, whether or not there's a line item on that budget, I do not know.
Okay.
But there are a lot of state agencies, finance and administration, AG's office, you can just think, that don't have any revenue at all. I mean, that I can think of. I mean, they just serve an administrative function. And so for them, it's all, and for those agencies that don't generate revenue, the obligation to pay comes out of their budget. But the ultimate, as I understand it, I don't pretend to be a giant expert on this, but as I understand it, it comes out of the general fund. Which means we're paying for that too.
Right, well, that's kind of what I'm wondering about, it's like, of the other, I guess I should rephrase that, of the other revenue drivers in the government. Like, I wonder what their obligation is for this payback as well, or will we, like, as long as it's being equally distributed amongst the revenue drivers, I would hope. I feel good about it, or good enough about it, but.
There is no one expert that I am aware of that can give you a good explanation. When you start reading about it, Maine is not unique. This is an issue that almost every single state has to face, and it goes back decades. And it just goes to the fact that when, MEPers and everybody was funded, but they weren't funded enough. And so everybody's dealing with that. And when you really kind of start drilling down and reading about the issue, it's pretty horrifying. I mean, a lot of people are saying this obligation is going to triple and quadruple unless somebody jumps on it. Some states are dealing with it differently. I think Maine's dealing with it reasonably responsibly, but still, it's gone up every year here. So.
Aging workforce.
I mean, I agree, it's a huge question, and I think anytime, I would be in support of any time we go back with feedback, we say, and the unfunded pension should not be an operating expense that falls under Island's, requirement to have a 50%, to cover 50% by the tariff.
I think I'd couch it in, like, we question our obligation and not, well, and not just take it as a
I still
given.
like yours, if we
Well,
strongly
just-
oppose it.
I'm not sure we should take it as a given, but I've never gotten a rational and, cogent argument as to why that's in there. Other than it is.
Well, that suggests to me that raising the question until it's answered is a reasonable thing to do.
Okay.
Can
do.
And I completely trust your
Yeah.
language.
I'll try to work some
Right.
language that
But
won't
just,
set anybody on fire.
right, you don't have to
Anybody's
like
hair on fire.
pound the drum, right, but just keep a steady beat of
Yeah.
it, you know?
or, now, I think I asked this question before, and I'm not sure I got an answer. Could you help me out here?
All right, I'm gonna be the no vote on this. I say you flat out, just set it on fire, beat the drum extremely loudly. Because especially if they're going to continue to put all this on us, so. And along the same lines of it, if we're funding their fault. And now we're increasing the trucks to $6.75 per foot. Take out the dump trucks and take out everything else. That is now our gas that goes up. That is our food costs that goes up. We're paying for it twice, one way or another. And those are the things that are responsible for our survival and that we have to have here. So saying, oh, okay, well, we're gonna put it on the big trucks. No, it doesn't put it onto the big trucks that's doing construction. It doesn't put it on the big trucks that are, taking up the space. That's now oil and gas, that's Josh and Janice and anybody who's bringing over propane and everything else. How many of us have heard from everyone on this island that they are having a hard time affording their oil, that all of the prices are now going up exponentially? You increase that by what, 50%?
$45 a truck or so, I estimate,
Right,
go from 90 to 135.
and then you take them up to $40 to get a vehicle off to try to go do groceries at an affordable rate. I mean, Peter, Paul, or pick a kneecap.
Okay. So back off on the truck. Well.
I think it's too high. I think it's too much of an expectation to ask them to put it.
They're gonna get it out of our pockets one way
I
or
was
the other.
gonna say, where are they gonna put it?
6 in one, half dozen the other. It's gonna either be,
I think the reservation could stand to go a little higher myself.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just
No,
don't-
no, I agree fully. It's just if they're needing it to fund something, then I feel like we're penalizing businesses is all that we're doing. And if we don't have the businesses, then what do we have?
A barren wasteland.
No, I mean, it seems like their strategy to me is let's increase what is most likely to not have the ability to decrease
no.
their traffic, right?
Right.
And that's,
Mhm.
I mean, from a revenue generation perspective, probably not a bad strategy if I was sitting on their side of the table, but it does feel like, it is a really hard, you know, that's a huge increase for businesses and then consumers to.
Yeah,
Okay,
It'll be in your fuel bill.
Mm-hmm. And your food.
Already outrageous.
do you think it worthwhile to just continue? I don't think it would hurt to just continue to say, what's the harm in a decent resident rate?
Right.
I
And
agree.
how about a senior citizen discount if you can't do the resident rate? And how about a decent commuter? The commuter thing's almost a throwaway at this point, I don't know, but it still seems to me if you're gonna have a commuter rate, why don't you have one somebody will buy?
Is it, you buy 5 tickets, you have to go within that week, Is that what-
7 days, I think. or
or
you
7 days?
lose it. You know, I mean, Casco Bay has one where if you don't use it, as long as you go in before they expire, they'll give you a refund or credit toward the next step, that kind of thing. You know,
Yeah, I think it's 5 that you can use within 2 or 3 weeks,
right, it's
something like
like,
that.
makes sense, it's, okay, I can do that, and then I'll, bring up the unfunded pension liability. So I will, try to draft something up and get it up to Shay, and maybe then you can, or yeah, I'll get it to Shay and Janet, and then everyone can take a peek at it and tell me what you think. You can tell me to turn the flame up or down.
Yeah, emoji.
John, it wouldn't hurt to ask the question, I'm thinking, but what other revenue sources are there for the unfunded retirement? You mentioned maybe it's state parks, maybe it's fish and wildlife. You know, just what are the, who else generates funds towards that?
I'll just ask if they're aware of any other state agencies that have it as a line item in their budget. That the users pay,
Yeah.
you know.
But the
Sure, I-
unfunded balance here refers just to the DOT, the ferry service.
But well, the way it works is, I think the way it works is that someone in finance and administration works in conjunction with MEPers every year. And they get told what the total unfunded liability is. And then someone in F&A allocates it across the board to the various state agencies.
But not equal.
Oh, no, because the payrolls are very different. I mean, I think there's some sort of attempt to make it just, but, you know, I don't know the mechanics of it. I just know that I think it's on an annual basis, and it might not even be that, it might be biannually or whatever, but I think that basically they get told, if you're running an agency, you get told that this is what you're getting hit with this year.
And,
I don't know if you saw that comment from Peter.
oh, yeah, so, Peter Wilcox says, fuel gas is 1 trip a month. Question mark, food is 3 trips a week. Most of the trucks are coming for construction.
I think that's true. I mean, you know, to the best of my knowledge, I think, I mean, you know, not having a gravel pit means that whenever you're on a boat, you're on with one or 2 or 3 Okay. Peter's right.
So just process wise on the tariff, this is still not the tariff that begins their kind of formal process. This
That
is
is-
still,
That is correct.
Okay.
Everything that we have here with these spreadsheets and everything are illustration. I think when we have our, special meeting with Commissioner, which I think is October
30th.
30th.
Where is that going to be? It won't fit in that,
It'll be in Rockland.
won't fit in that meeting room.
Yeah, it'll be October 30th at 10:30. I suspect that, I mean, obviously, we want to get our input in before the special meeting. Because I suspect that the special, I haven't told it, but I wouldn't be surprised if here's our proposal. And I don't get the clock ticking under the Administrative Procedures Act and all that stuff. And that doesn't mean we don't still have input. But there's input and there's input, you know, as we know.
I have another hand raised. Go ahead, Robert.
go ahead, Robert. Oh, you're muted.
Take care.
Oh, we heard you briefly and then you muted again.
Okay. I'm Bob Koshan. I'm a new resident to the island. I've been here about 3 months or since June. I'm on the north end on Big Tree, and I'm listening to this conversation, and it appears from a total outsider, but new to the island, that you're trying to treat the problem without getting to the root cause. And may I suggest that you, if it hasn't already been done, to work together as a cohesive group with the other islands, because apparently from what I'm hearing, they all have the same issues generally. And collectively, you have a lot more power than just Islesboro would against the DOT. There's some issues that haven't been specifically commented on tonight, such as the cost of replacement of the ferry and all the ferries for that matter, but our ferry specifically. And that would obviously run into a significant amount of money. And there's very few alternatives should our ferry fail catastrophically for some reason. And the new one isn't anywhere near being ready, as I understand. So my suggestion is that we work with the other islands as a cohesive group and fight this tariff change, because as it was stated, it's only going to continue for the next 4 years and then probably a up and up and up. So, and I'll be glad to assist in any way I can. I'm a forensic engineer, semi-retired, and I have been through a lot of conversations with various government departments over the years. So if there's anything I can do, I'll be glad to assist. That's all.
Thanks, Bob. There is a group that John is our representative on that includes the other islands, and there is a long history of kind of coordination. So I think, but I also, and like anything is complicated. I think it might be worth maybe having a one-on-one with John. Because I think you raised some important points, and it's a nuanced relationship that we're working on.
Yeah. Bob, thank you for your comments. This is John. We do work pretty closely with the other islands, and I'm in close contact with them. The whole issue of the unfunded retirement liability has stuck on a couple of walls, but not everybody's wall yet. And we're working on that. On the capital expenditures issue, we're needing new boats and things of that nature. The state pays 100% of that. So The issues about which we're speaking tonight and generally are speaking about are operating expenses only. And it's just the way the statute's set up. But thanks, and I'm happy to talk to you anytime you'd like.
Thank you, John. I would welcome the opportunity to be assistance if I can.
Great.
You better watch out, you might be.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks. Okay, I know we are running long here, so, we wrap the tariff and just do 2 minutes on the schedule?
Yeah, that's fine. I made the bullet points in my email to you. We asked for 9 trips a day during the winter. Bill Beery's come up with 7. He's knocked Sunday trips back to 5. There's only 2 morning boats, 12:30 boats, and 2 last boats. There's 4 boats on Thanksgiving, no service at all on Christmas and New Year's. And he proposed to begin that, I guess that's the bad news. The good news is, the proposal is to begin it on November 6th. So we can at least get through October, because the last time we had ammunition in service during the winter months, October was not a happy situation. And then I got an email from him today, which is part of the packet that Anna put together, that he had talked about March 10th as resumption of summer service, and now he wants to move that to April 14th. So basically kick it out almost another month. We talked about the ridership numbers the last time. March is not a heavy month, so I don't see that as a big thing. But the good news is the date, the bad news is everything else, because and he's accepting, input still. So what do you think? What I had suggested, based on our discussions the last time we met, was knock off a morning boat to keep the afternoon boat on, because it would be easier for the school, I think. And that obviously didn't carry a lot of weight, but there's no harm in asking them. Whatever you folks would like to know.
Preference on comments?
7 is set, John, for the winter,
Not yet.
okay?
No, it's still under discussion, which is why he's still accepting input. So if we scream loud and hard, we might get 8.
Yeah. I think we need that 2:30. Well, perfect.
The school wants to scream for 2:30 Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Unless anybody wants to outvote me on that.
Nope, sounds good. No, that's fine. You guys work with the Sundays and no service, so get the Rennies and get the.
It's unfortunate, but I feel like we've done it before, so we.
Yeah, okay.
Pick our battles.
Yep.
Christmas, stay home. Oh.
Exactly.
How come you're shortening up ferries?
Say it again.
How come you're shortening up ferries?
They're talking about the regular
Oh,
schedule,
Well, we're talking.
how they use,
That's
what they went back to before.
That's the ferry service down there, right?
Okay, anything else on ferries?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. I'm hoping this- you're not gonna see me again for a while.
Sea level rise, I will be brief. There is a small, there's a group discussion happening at the library this Saturday. To give opportunity for, just more community conversations. Our next committee meeting is October 5th. Hopefully at that meeting, we will have an RFQ. We'll be able to approve an RFQ to put out for engineering work at the Narrows. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions. Oh yeah, John.
You almost made it out.
You stay until the first bullet of, there's a discussion about Lincolnville parking on the agenda. And I don't know. It might be worth having you
The only update I can give you right now is after Janet sent me, the, email from the, people at DOT about what their discussions regarding Lincolnville. I sent them an email that said, hey, we'd love to be part of this too. And they said, great, and I haven't heard back from them yet. But, we'll get involved in that.
Isn't that meeting tomorrow morning?
Is there a meeting tomorrow morning?
Mhm.
Oh, lovely. What time's that? Here?
I don't know, we brought.
No, I think there's folks from DOT who are maybe visiting, it sounded like maybe visiting a Lincolnville parking lot to do like a site visit, so.
Okay.
I don't have any additional information beyond that. Have you heard anything else, Janet?
No, I mean, I was gonna say I could check with Dave Kinney in the morning, but that would be too late.
Yeah, get me over there. Well, there's not a lot.
Right, you do not a lot to look at.
It's like, okay, there's the 130 parking spots. What do you want to do with them? And I don't think they're gonna build a deck, And the only other thing I think I mentioned this to you before is I've had some discussions with Bill Pulver about a park and ride. Probably on the Belfast side. And there's a DOT yard, basically 8 miles north of Lincolnville. That is, for carpooling and stuff would be pretty okay, I think. But that depends on how much land they have out there. I'm sorry it's gonna be tomorrow, but,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it seems like it's more something that would be appropriate for us to request a meeting with them.
Or if
And
they're
ask
coming
them,
over
yeah.
here at some point.
I'll try to follow up email wise. I know the people and I know the names now. And so I can write them and say, okay, let's, get this on track too. Okay?
Thanks.
Can I interrupt before he leaves? This is Bob Koshan.
Go ahead, Bob.
I own a house directly across from the Whale's Tooth, and the building, which was Chez Michel's restaurant, is still for sale. He wants me to buy that and tear it down and make parking places. I don't necessarily want to go into the parking lot business, but what I want to know is how many spaces do you all feel would be necessary to support Islesboro?
Bob, who is he that is asking you to do this?
Oh, the owner.
Oh, the owner of the restaurant?
Whale's Tooth?
Sorry?
The owner of the Whale's Tooth, or the owner?
The owners of Chez Michel's restaurant, the former restaurant,
Oh,
which
Yeah.
my property abuts.
Right.
So it's directly across from the Whale's Tooth. And there's a sufficient space to probably have a 45 to 60 parking places. The question would be, how many do we really need?
Probably 45 to 60. Looking at it reasonably, we have 5 teachers that commute from the mainland for the school. We have 12 to 15 students that drive that are considered magnet students. Then we have all of the workers, which on any given day is, I think, 45 to 30 to 45 that are walking across, and all of them are taking up parking spaces throughout it. All in the summertime, as I'm sure that you've seen, the parking lots are completely full and overflowed, causing people to park down through Lincolnville Beach in the 4-hour parking zones. There hasn't been a time in the summer that I'm aware of that there has been available parking during normal business hours or operation of the ferry hours, that there's been open parking spots starting Memorial Day. So I would say 40 to 60 parking spots additionally would just ease it, not even solve the problem.
Would those parking spaces be dedicated, in your all group's opinion, for Islesboro residents or for the commuters?
I think that could only be designated by the owner of the property that's doing the parking lot.
Well, the real question, underlying
Right.
question is, are there 45 or 60 or 100 residents that need to park a car on the mainland and would be willing to do that? and pay for it.
As we're looking at a $49, $50 passenger car ticket coming up, if that's even remotely possible, I would think that more and more who would want to.
If they had a
Well,
second.
Bob, no,
Right.
Bob, you and I should talk about this, for background purposes. What's, right now, the ferry service only charges for parking during the peak season. So they're about to stop charging as of the end of this month. And, but there's still no parking there. So,
Right.
so, and so it would be, you know, dedicated, non-dedicated is an issue. Price would be an issue. I think, what was, I didn't buy one this year. Was it $350 a car? 300. They're charging 300 a season right now, but that could go up at any time. And.
Yeah.
With no guarantee of a
And
parking spot.
that's the thing, is when you buy that parking thing, it's really it's a right to hunt for a parking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a longer discussion than we have tonight, that I think maybe worth having you guys start one-on-one and then come back with when we have a plan, you know, figure out how we can incorporate that into our conversations with DOT and what they're planning for their lot.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Thank
and I'm
you.
happy to talk to you about that as well, Bob.
Great.
Okay,
All right.
okay to go?
You can. Run with it.
If anyone else wants to go over to Lincoln, go at 10 o'clock in the morning, feel free. But I don't think I'll miss a lot by not being there, because it's kind of like what you see is what you get. You know, if it were 2 years ago and it was before they put the new sewer system in and everything, you know, but it ain't, so.
Who owns that land where the sewer system
I
was?
think the town does, I think the town of Lincoln does,
Okay.
which is too bad, because, you know, if they had a robust plan, you could do that and parking, and I think, and more.
Okay.
Well, yeah, except you.
Oh, you just
go up.
dig into it, go up.
Yeah, I know.
All right, thanks, John. Okay, municipal building project updates.
Tomorrow, Steve Blatt, Mark Willett from Steve Blatt and Associates, Pete Anderson and myself are meeting with H.E. Callahan in Auburn to go over the budget in a 4-hour budget session, and, you know, sort out exactly where we're at this point. We're still planning on construction starting November 1st and finishing the end of May. So I'll have more to report at our next select board meeting.
So construction's gonna be at both locations?
Yes,
It's gonna start in both locations?
both locations.
Any other questions? Okay. Upcoming meetings and subcommittee reports, planning board October 16th. Anything else to report? All right, on to you, Janet, town manager report.
All right, I've given you minutes from the housing committee meeting of April 18th. Harbor committee minutes of April 20th. Municipal broadband minutes from June 23rd. Energy committee minutes 8:15. They're very long. You've got time to read them. They're very informative. Right, Karen?
Yeah, you have quite a job.
I know.
I need to start checking off how many
Hours.
hours.
Very impressive.
Yeah, very nice, yeah, I did enjoy. I learned a lot. I mentioned, I sent you the notice that Shay referred to the, future flooding at the Narrows at the library. The 30th at 10 a.m. And the energy team, which is chaired by Toby, that's not the energy committee, the energy team. Will have their, he said the 6th energy conference on October 14th. I don't know if it's been it hasn't been 6 consecutive years, so maybe it's, but that's what he said. I don't think they did it during COVID. This Thursday, Ed Hodgkins of RJD Appraisals will be here for office hours. And probably, and Rob will be coming the following Thursday, and we'll try to see how things are going, and if he's gonna plan someone to come out here every Thursday, we'll see. Just a report on the town truck is still being diagnosed at the garage. The garage does not want to believe it needs an engine, so there's having everybody they can find in the world to come and look at it, but it may end up just needing an engine. And I sent over today the Explorer for inspection and brakes, because a couple people have driven it and said, you know, it's doing this, it's doing that, it's down this, and I drove it and I didn't really feel safe in it the other day, so I've got to make sure it's safe for them. So come to find out, it does need rear brakes and something in the front, and I said, don't tell me anymore, you know, you're just lifting off, because it has to pass inspection. So that will be done tomorrow afternoon, I believe. There had parts coming in for the brakes, so. Okay. That's all from me. Do you have any questions?
All right, correspondence? No correspondence? All right, I think we already got through the Lincolnville parking. Is there anything else on that right now? Okay, next up, revised transfer station demolition debris and metal fees schedule. You know, we have the proposed prices in our packet. Janet or Melissa, do you wanna kind of present this?
I got to meet with the members of the transfer station, including Jeff, Jordy, Charlie, Janet. We met last month to go over where we were bleeding money out of, which we discovered during the budget season. When we'd gone through it, it had been brought up at that time that we needed to increase our fees in order to keep up with it. It hadn't been done in a very large amount of time, and then learning how much it was costing for Casella to come and take them out. They're taking it out by weight, they're taking out half full because of the way that dump trailers were loading it in. Very informative, hour and a half, 2 hour, 3 hours, it seemed like forever. Meeting with Jeff and all of them. I learned more about the transfer station and the different things that happen than I even knew possible. And so I applaud them for dealing with all of my constant and consistent questions with it. Going through, also looking at what other islands and neighboring areas charged for their debris, not even just demolition debris, but their transfer fees and different things like that. This is what we had established that would go through. This helps take a considerable burden off of what the town would now be paying out for it. And even with these increases, it still does not put us into the black. We're not making any money off of this. And so we're still paying more out than what we're gonna be taking in for it.
And another goal was to cut down the number of bins that go off. And
Yes.
like Melissa mentioned, they might go off. Sometimes they're overloaded and Casella won't take them if they're not loaded properly. But because it's their responsibility once they take it. And they don't want to drive up Route 1 and have something fly out. So that's kind of what put the fear into me when one of the time that they came and said, told Jeff they weren't going to take it. And then they did some kind of quick maneuvering to try to get it loaded down. So it just seemed like we were closed a bin every week. It seems like, no, you can't, demo bins closed, demo bins closed, demo bins closed. And so, but for regular households couldn't go up there and dump the stuff. And it's basically due to the dumpsters. I mean, the dump trailers or the dump bodies, how they have to dump. It's, perpendicular to the bin. So things go down in there and they don't they're not aligned, and I don't want anybody in there climbing down in there to try to align it, but it's just the nature of the beast. So. And insurance has been after me for a couple of years to put up gates or something to keep people, and not that these Jersey berries that are up there are gonna keep people from climbing over them, but the main issue was trying to begin with starting,
The hand loading process.
the hand loading process.
We did have the plastic ones that were up initially that people lovingly ran over and
Picked up and
dumped
moved.
into the back of them. And so that was how come that we ended up having to go with a more permanent concrete barrier. That way they couldn't just run the truck backwards into it, knock it off and then say, oops. Make Jeff go down into it, try to lift that thing out. I mean, that's what actually was causing more harm than good.
There's a lot of tales of the crypt up there.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it might make sense to separate the fee schedule from the Jersey barrier discussion.
Yeah,
Oh,
Um,
it is on there, sorry.
no, yeah, no, I think it's important to discuss them both, but I've heard questions and conversations about each individually, so I just would rather take them individually so that they don't get, yeah.
Let's do schedule. The fee schedule.
My only question is, I know at some point we had also talked about, just an interest in encouraging folks to get their own demo bins, if that felt more appropriate. I think with this pricing, it looks probably like that encourages people to do so, but there's not any additional messaging that you are recommending around that. You're not recommending any changes in who can access or anything like that, correct?
No, I think the only thing that we did was that we were asking that the planning board, when people were getting permits for doing things, that the recommendation was put to them that they needed to get their own, thank you. From either Costella or whatever company that they chose to, but that was the preferred method that they needed to, because there was something with the lawyers that we couldn't tell them that they
yeah, we
had
couldn't
to.
tell them that they had to get their own.
What would, if there was a systematic way in which big construction operations, big housing construction operations were going on, and you did encourage them to have their own demo bins before we put in a new fee schedule. I'm just wondering if we could bring down the prices at all by encouraging that operation through the planning board or through thinking through how we might encourage that more. And because I think a lot of this is big activity that's happening over the summer, right? And it's filling in the dumpsters, this is not my area of expertise.
Right.
And, but this fee schedule could harm people that aren't big operators, that are just doing their own small dump jobs because they're, just us.
Right. I know that the last 4 on here look like they're pretty dramatic. The last 4 to 5 on here from the $125 down, those are your big construction people. Anything past basically an 8-foot trailer, which is that $70. That is there for the cubic yards. That's what Jeff judges off of eyeball and stuff like that off of it. So saying that it was 35 before. When we went through and was talking about that rate, that's to encourage if you're having great big,
Yeah.
that's a dumpster essentially that you would go through and do.
Okay.
But if you're doing that consistently and constantly, then it would be more beneficial for a person to have their own as opposed to paying to the rate. And so that is part of the trade-off and the balance with it. Looking through, even with it, because he was telling me that even if we didn't change anything from the 10-foot on with the cubic yards and the weight and depth and all of those, he very rarely sees any of these other ones. Those were done in order to make sure that it was done as don't bring your dumpster up to there and put it into ours. He had, the day before we had our meeting, he was telling me that he quite literally had 2 trucks that had came through and filled 2 dumpsters and it was already closed again. And so by the time that it's opening, it was closing, because then he had to call Castella to have them come out to take it back out. And so basing it off of, is it more harmful that no one has access to it at all because they're closed, or try to help deter and move where it needs to go to?
And right now, those demolition bins are emptied on a set weekly schedule or based as needed,
As
what do you
needed.
call them?
Yeah.
Okay.
When they're full and by weight.
Jeff, it looks like your hand's up.
I just wanted to say there really isn't any change when it comes to construction work year round. It actually picks up more this time of year and into the winter and spring, and cuts back in the summer. The majority of the major loads that we saw this summer were actually people cleaning out their properties that they've purchased recently. But I'm sending 3 bins off a week between May, the beginning of May, and the end of September. I sent 3 off this week alone.
But also what happened after this meeting that we met, John Applequest started a business renting out demo bins to contractors. And I don't know if Michael, when it's time, you can talk about it. Is that what you're here to talk about? No. I don't know how many, I haven't talked to John since this happened, so I don't know how many, but he said he was gonna get 3 and have one at his place, and he had some that he was going to rent out, so I don't know how many he actually did rent out, if he's going to get more. So that was a big thing. It's just coincidental that
As
he,
far as I know, John has 3 or 4 people right now renting bins from him. I spoke to him earlier today, and he was asking me questions about what we pay Casella and everything, and I told him that would be a question to direct towards you, Janet. But it seems like he's building up his inventory of bins pretty quickly. He's up to like 4 or 5 at the moment, as far as I know, of various sizes.
What I'm concerned about is, I talked to Jay Zlatkowski, and we had started off talking about a totally different topic, and he brought up the topic of the Jersey barriers and how difficult it is for him, literally, loading his van and then having to walk over piece by piece, take it over the Jersey barriers, and that he can't, this is his business, and it's an island business that we want to keep. And the Jersey barrier setup is really making his life very, very difficult, and he can't hire somebody to do it for him, or that's going to up his costs again. So is there an angle of this where we can begin to look at, volume, and some of our local businesses make sure that they aren't being harmed by this process? I don't know if anybody else.
I don't really consider the Jersey barriers harming anyone, more making it fair for everyone, because we don't have big contractors filling up the bins, so our smaller contractors can't get their stuff into the bins. So as far as the Jersey barriers go, I don't see those penalizing anyone per se, more so just equalizing the field for everyone.
Art, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Art? Is that Art?
I'm sorry. There we go.
No, we can hear you.
I think, we're all looking at the appropriate stuff. I'm thinking that privatizing the demo area may be a benefit for the town, like the plow contract. It get bid out via Casella, local people, however it works out, and see how that goes. I mean, there's other options as far as what material gets put in what dumpster. If it's, clean demo, be it 100 years old or being, 5 years old. If it's clean, unpainted, it could be burned and that mass be sold. There's lots of stuff that we could look at, I think, that would help ease this. And I do agree, and my question would be to our town lawyers, how would we look at a project, be it when they put the permit in, is it a $1 million renovation or is it a $25,000 addition? How that might work into what the demo fees would be, and how that would work. Just some thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Thanks, Art.
Yeah, that was something else we've talked about. How do you, is it the square footage of what the project is that they think, if it's a tear down versus that's obvious? I would think some businessmen would like to have it on their site, and they can just do it right there and not send their crew up the road 2 or 3 blocks the road and back down and save.
How's John getting his bins off the island?
He has a truck.
There's a couple of.
What?
He bought a hauler truck to do it.
Oh, you did?
He has the same kind of truck as Casella.
Good color too.
Mm. Michael, did you want to chime in? I know that we talked earlier.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Let's see. Can you tell me again that the cost of the Casella demo bin disposal is based upon the weight
By ton,
by the ton? Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. So how are we coming up with these numbers based on volume in terms of the fees? We're talking about fees right now, right? Or are we talking about everything?
No, we're still talking about the fees.
Okay, cool. So regarding the fees, it appears to me that the fee schedule that's proposed that was circulated, I believe, yesterday, is based upon volume, cubic feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
So I
yards.
could have, so just, again, I just want to be clear so we're all on the same page here. I could have, one of Babe's, triple axle dump trucks filled with styrofoam and pretty quickly fill up one of those demo bins. And you're telling me that the actual fees regarding the removal of that particular bin are calculated by weight. Is that correct?
Right. No, I see what
Okay.
you're saying.
So explain to me the logic behind a volume charge versus the actual cost of removal, which is a weight fee, or is it some combination of the two?
Yeah, it's really, it would be very hard to pinpoint, if we only had one demo bin up there, and if Jeff could assess the size, of the 8 by 20, let's say they took up half of it. And then we got a bill for that one, but we have 3 demo bins going off. And these don't really go by. This is like an original schedule that probably Marnie drew up 20 years ago when they started charging, but so there's not really a correlation between that, I would say. If you're paying, like you used to pay $10 for a little, but when it comes time, they take it off. And then we get the bill, which is probably a month later. I mean, there's no way to say, well, you overpaid, you underpaid. But like, I can't explain the styrofoam filling up the container.
But I just want to be clear. So the town is paying by weight, not volume, correct?
Correct. And we don't currently have a situation or a way to weigh amounts that are going into the dumpsters. And so back when this was created by Marnie, it was done off of it might have been Olson or before Olson, that
Oh, yeah.
was allowing him to eyeball it.
Yeah, there were
To determine the
trailers,
weights, you
Pickup
know.
trucks and trailers, there probably weren't a lot of these huge.
We have to utilize Jeff very heavily and allow for his, I can't think of the word, but
Calculation.
yeah, his calculation and his determination as to if Mike Clayton's bringing me up or bringing up nothing but pipe that is in a 6-foot long truck that's filled to the brim as opposed to you bringing up a couch. They both
Okay.
are essentially the same length and width, but Jeff is the one that gets to make the ultimate determination on it.
And short of us buying a set of scales to put up there,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that would be maybe cost prohibitive.
You should contact some other transfer stations in the neighborhood and find out what they do. Because
We
a lot
have.
of It's all about weight.
Yeah, and they don't want, a lot of them don't allow contractors. And so, like North Haven, they can charge $100 a load. Didn't matter what size.
Yeah.
And they have their own little.
Pardon, I don't mean to interrupt. This is awkward doing this over Zoom, but the point made about looking at other islands to sort of get a better sense of what Islesboro should be charging for demo removal is an interesting one. I think that sort of concept or the sort of logic behind that is one that we've discussed numerous times in regarding the ferry service. There are actually a lot of analogs here that I'm picking up on after listening through John King's presentation. So yeah, if you're saying North Haven's charging what, $100 some odd dollars for what exactly?
I'd have to,
One truckload, one passenger type of truck,
I mean, I think they only had one fee.
and it was regardless of what was in it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So are they not being charged by weight or?
What they do, they were unable to provide me what they did with how they removed their garbage or I was waiting to hear back from one of their managers. They they sent me their fee schedule that they charged, their residents. And then
Right,
when
but
I asked
did they
them,
actually give you their costs? Their
It
actual
was-
costs of removal?
Where
No.
we're not doing it.
What's that?
Everybody keeps talking about residents.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so did
Sorry,
North
Michael,
Haven
they
actually
weren't
give you a sense of the removal cost?
No, they were not.
Okay, that
And
would be a really helpful number to have. I think if we're gonna do some comparisons to other communities, we not only need to know what they're charging, but also what their costs are and where those
Right.
costs come from. Are they using the same, dumpster removal company? You know, is the contract the same? I don't see that a lot of work has actually, no offense, has actually been done here to answer these questions in a way that is justifiable. I think it's premature to put these numbers out in the way that they've been done. And I think honestly, it's going to hurt a lot of local people here. And I'd be happy to talk more about the Jersey barrier situation when that's
Well,
appropriate.
Let's finish fees first. Jeff, do
Sure,
you
yeah.
have? Jeff, did you know more about North Haven than I did?
I honestly believe, as far as Michael's concerns about how we're charging it out and everything, I tend to agree with him. I believe if we had a set of scales, that we would be more accurate and it would be more efficient.
Absolutely.
It would be more fair.
100%.
100%.
No, I mean, Jeff, you raised a really good point, Michael, and, yeah, I mean, it seems as though, I don't know, in your research, do you know what we'd be looking at for the cost of scales? I mean, is there additional work that it makes sense to to do, before we finalize these new prices?
This is really good.
We can look into.
I mean, if you talk to other transfer stations, as you have, and you could ask them, obviously they have scales, where'd you get them? Because we want them. You should be able to do a little Googling and find out where you can get them, and I mean. it should
My
have been-
question was more about, have we already done the research to understand how much they cost?
Yeah,
No, we were looking at it through the budgetary process.
I have not looked into.
Because we were looking at doing, they need a skid steer in the tractor. The different things that were weighted as to what would be prioritized to finance for the transfer station before. And so, because now if we're, it's not a thing that if it's changing from that, Jeff likes the idea of scales, but now it's getting them installed, weighted. And then do we need to look at potentially hiring another person up there for him?
Right. and
Because
that's the
somebody
hard
has to
part,
run
yeah.
the scales while somebody else is still doing the rest of the lower level.
And that's his issue now. He can't be up there watching how people,
Are dumping.
unload or aren't dumping it and then be down below.
And this is all increased in this last couple of years.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, and so,
About threefold.
that
well,
could-
he should have a better way to pack the containers if he's only gonna have full one. Babe goes on it with his kindness of his heart with his excavator and packs
Right.
the,
And we're
without
having-
charging anybody, but
We're having to ask to borrow different equipment and stuff like that. That way they can go through and push it down when it has
I
to.
know, but
Peter has,
think about that when you're thinking about skid steers and other equipment up there, that might be handy to have that because there's people that go up there and dump things and there's crap all over the place.
Absolutely.
So then somebody has to go clean it up for them. Well, guess what? You're out,
Right,
get somebody in there. I mean, we've done it our whole lives and we know how to pack a container
right,
neatly and clean up everybody else's stuff. So it's like, that's what you gotta think about.
right.
That would help pack a full container. So you don't have to set up an empty one. If it's full of styrofoam, you can pack it tighter.
Absolutely. But
without-
that's what I was saying in regards to the budgetary concerns of how much they cost for the installation and everything. To
Yeah.
get them out there and get them installed versus what they need right
Not-
now in
not
order
the
to,
scales, but equipment, I mean, an excavator or something.
both of them.
Yeah.
If we can only do one or the other without increasing,
we would need to prioritize
exactly.
something
But
big.
it sounds like, more research might be helpful. And, both in terms of what other islands and other transportation.
I just can't put my hand on it.
Yeah.
But I know it was North Haven was very limited. I think.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking that,
I'll get the things back out from the other ones, redistribute them to you guys, that way you can see it, cause this has been going on, we've been working on it since March.
yeah,
And so it's unfortunate that I don't have it with me tonight, and so, but to be able to pull the numbers from the other towns, plus just even over, China has an entirely different concept of what they do with everything. The guys at the transfer station did an enormous amount of work to find out what everybody else's transfer fees were, what they're doing with it and all of that, and so
but,
they did.
but coming from sheer and utter ignorance, listening to everybody with really good points, it just seems like there's still issues that some people don't load the demo bin properly. Some people, there's problems with big bin, dumps, and then other people are suffering because they're just unloading their little van and they can't get past the Jersey barriers. So it just seems like more of a different sort of research, not just the cost that, how it's operated at other places, but also, is there a way, like one of you suggested, to require when they're permitting big operations to charge or say you have to have your own demo bin instead of, I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying
Yeah.
we haven't brainstormed everything
And that
outside
might
of
need to
what
be
it
an ordinance revision to,
Yeah.
you're gonna require, so that will take time.
And I'm going to the planning board,
So
because that
like
was
a
what came back
recommend-
from the lawyers that said that no, you couldn't do it, you could only strongly recommend and encourage. without changing.
Yeah, I think I asked about, resident versus non-resident, and I said, have they seen any ordinances like that or any policies? And they hadn't, but let her know if we wanted something crafted, but we
Yeah.
didn't feel like that.
Well, I mean, your recommendations, sort of provide the financial incentive to do that. So I think from that perspective, I think it works. There have been other questions where, yeah, it's harder where the system feels a little less fair. It looks like, so we'll take the three hands that are up right now, Michael, Jeff, and then Art.
Thank you. So one of the big problems on this island, in regards to the use of those demo bins, and I would go even a little further than that, but, is the incredible amount of waste that is generated on job sites. A lot of these, and Jeff can reiterate this if he so chooses, because he knows better than pretty much everybody. Because he sees it. There's perfectly good, usable material being thrown out all the time. Packing those demo bins to the brim, whether or not it's packed efficiently is not really the point to what I'm saying, which is that
The waste.
if there were if we had a sort of a restore type situation here on the island, or architectural salvage of some kind, to handle these materials that are perfectly usable and otherwise, someone doesn't want to deal with it because it's going to cost them money on the job site. They just rip it out and throw it in the dumpster. There are a lot of people out here, myself included, who are more than happy to use that kind of material in projects. And, their doors, their windows, there's insulation. I mean, quite literally, I've seen brand new materials not even used thrown in the demo bins. I mean, this stuff, you could build multiple houses with this material. And it's insane to me that happens here, on this island. It's totally unacceptable. And I'm hoping that somebody, it might be a private business or it could be the town, could actually create some point for architectural salvage. You could make some money on it too if you wanted. But like we have the put and take shed, it's basically the same thing.
You would eliminate a lot of wasted space.
Massive amount of space is wasted.
That's a good point. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Jeff, did you? If you're speaking, you're still on mute. We can't hear you.
I think it would be a worthy idea if somebody was willing to take it up. I do see a lot of usable material go into those bins, whether it be a half a sheet of ply or a 6-foot 2x4 or an 8-foot 2x4, or even old lumber that's still usable because it's just really good old lumber. There's many things that I see go into those bins that are still functioning or functional.
You're gonna pick it all apart and store all that stuff. Trust me, it doesn't last very long. Oh my God.
Being an island Home Depot?
I got a whole yard full of stuff that's just rotting away because you're dying to keep it, but you can't.
Can we send them up to you?
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is not practical for an individual contractor. It's
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry. What I was suggesting is not appropriate for an individual contractor to manage or to do.
And then Art, did you have anything else that you wanted to say? I know you responded to Michael's comments.
How about we agree upon an interim increase to help fund this issue and not make it quite so steep until we come up with a fair and equitable fee for all of those of us who use the facility.
That sounds like an excellent compromising solution. Thank you for the recommendation, Art.
Thank you.
And I do think, I mean, between this and the conversation around the buy, sell and swap, thing, I mean, I think obviously the transfer station and what happens to our waste is something that impacts us all, and it is nice to see so many people here for this discussion, and I think, you know, clearly warrants, I know that you all have done a tremendous amount of work, and thank you for all of the work that you have done. I think the level of interest in it, you know, reflects that it does impact everyone, and that, you know, a broader conversation can help identify other areas where we can both make sure that it is cost effective for the town to run, and hopefully reduces the amount of waste that is going into our landfills too.
So would you like to do a broader conversation as like a town meeting, or the next meeting, set it to try to rehash it again? I only asked that in that manner because we quite literally kicked this can down since budget. And so I would just like to be able to do something that it's not just a half a year's worth of benefit to next year's budget. And so, and I just wanted to play here.
No, I totally understand. I mean, I wonder if it makes sense to have a separate workshop. I know that you met with the folks from the transfer station. I wonder if it makes sense to have kind of a broader community workshop to where we have the data that you have already, you know, that you've gone through, so that it makes it available for folks, and set aside time for this as a specific conversation, and then comes back to the select board. Does that feel comfortable?
Jeff, can me and you get together to figure out a time that we can do a public workshop?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think during that public workshop, we should also consider the next phase of the transfer station, whatever that may be, because the setup we have is not going to last us much longer. If our population keeps growing the way it's been growing over the last couple of years, our facility isn't going to maintain.
Right. No, I fully agree with you, but I think that might be a multiple workshop thing. Let's just do one to do the fees Jersey barrier, and then we'll have another one to say what else needs to change. You want to do that?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, I'll email you tomorrow. I'll get with Janet, and then we'll have it publicly posted.
Awesome. Thank you.
So no changes,
Alrighty.
right?
No.
Well, I mean, Art had recommended perhaps some more moderate changes, which, you know, I do think we are hemorrhaging money on this. So I'm not necessarily opposed to changing the prices at all. I guess it really depends on how quickly you feel like you can get a public workshop together to.
I'm gonna get with Jeff tomorrow, and we're gonna get it figured out. We're in the middle of basketball season, and so, but I don't see there's a reason why this would go on for another month. And so I would almost say just leave it alone for now. That way he's not trying to learn new price schedules and then changing it again to either up it or down it, but just do it as a one and done kind of feature.
Is there any way to get a better, like, what Michael's saying about the volume versus weight situation? Is there like a way that we can get any sort of reasonable estimate of like what an average 10 by 6 by 1 load would weigh or could weigh, or if like, we're not feeling kind of like we're just sort of throwing randomly doubling numbers, or
Right, talking about getting scaled.
well, right, no.
The only
like
way to do that would be scales.
Because like if he's looking at it and he sees that it's a sleeper bed couch,
right,
versus 12 trash bags, the weight could be vastly different.
Yeah.
And then, but then he gauges it off of what it would fill.
Right.
Okay. I agree with a lot of this. However, we're still gonna bleed money, and in reality, I only see this forum or group getting together and not being real for 2 months. And again, if we continue to bleed this money, it is gonna cost us in our taxes somewhere in our budget down the road. So why don't we do an interim increase of 30% or 50% until we can resolve this, and let's do it immediately so that the town sees some immediate relief with what we've bled out. Thank you.
Everybody's coming up with such good ideas. I'm so glad I had to be a part of this.
I mean, I would support a 50% increase across the board now. I mean, I know that there has already been a tremendous amount of work that has been done. I do think that the level of interest in this, I would rather spend the time to have a thorough conversation rather than fast track a public process with it to get to these numbers. If we can do an increase now, because I think it also is really important for people to realize how much the town is currently subsidizing the cost of trash, and Devonall particularly leaving the island.
Yeah, I agree.
And the number of loads.
Yeah. So I would move that we do increase the fees 50%. Is that what you said?
Yep.
We have a second? Sure.
Any further discussion?
So the motion is to increase the fees by 50%. What day?
I would say effective October 1st.
Right.
And do you want to make that an interim increase? Just in terms of language.
No, I think, I don't think it needs to be interim.
No, I think
mean, if
that's-
it goes up, it goes up again.
I think after we get some more facts, you know, and this will help this fiscal year, of course, but.
And I also, you know, with it, I think we could also say, be looking for future public workshops to discuss.
How long do you have to go for notice for the meeting? 2 weeks. Okay. So we have a motion and a second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for all of your work, Melissa and Jeff and Janet, and I appreciate your willingness to continue to engage on this topic.
Yeah.
It's highly important.
If we get it, maybe tomorrow
Um,
morning, maybe.
Can we next go to the Jersey barriers quickly?
Let's do that. Oh, my other favorite topic.
Woo!
Well, from what I've heard from Michael and I've heard from Jay Zlakowski is that, I'll let Michael speak for himself, but Jay was just describing, he has to, you know, one by one load his van and then take it and then one by one unload it, and it's heavy. And he's got not only to get it out of this vehicle, but across the Jersey barriers. And, it's just very onerous and takes a lot of time and, you know, it's intensive.
How did Jay unload it before the Jersey barrier was
Back
there?
up and get in the back of your truck and push it off.
Push it out.
So basically just dumping it out.
Yeah,
And then falling between
Just
the
pushing
bin and
rather,
the wall.
rather than picking up and moving.
carrying.
Yeah, he doesn't have a dump trailer, he's got little parts, pieces of pumps and things that he throws out,
Right.
that's what it is, so,
Okay.
you know, he's not gonna carry the little stuff around. It's like me carrying sawdust all day long. So.
I would promote you carrying some of this all day long.
I mean, I guess, well, I think it's important to recognize what we have heard now and see if there is a short-term fix. It also seems like something that is kind of part of a broader conversation around needs at the transfer station and how it's meeting community needs.
I would like this to also be noted that this is a big part of our insurance requirement.
Yeah.
Is that we had to have something in order to prevent people from being able to back into it. the temporary ones that could be moved previously did not provide it, and then we've had the people that have backed in, or then
And
they
then
tried to
fallen.
move them and have fallen. Which now we do have the cameras up there, we can see it, but the insurance is the big part of what trumps convenience, unfortunately.
You know, where, what would our other option be, other than like an even more permanent thing with even bigger barriers,
Right.
you know?
Or
It seems like at
someone's
this point,
standing-
it's high, there, you can still throw over them. You know, if we don't do this, what's the next step?
And
Something higher, something wider.
Yeah.
I like that.
Now, if a vehicle backs up and it's in such a fashion that you can get your back of your truck, but your tires can't move all the way back. Why can't you do something like that? In other words, you can't move your truck too far back, but you can get it close enough that you can get the materials out of it.
Look at the picture. And I'm not trying to be like condescending or rude or anything like that. Those lifts are very shortly there. And so even if it was a shorter Jersey barrier, if they angled it down and through, you have one tire that can now go, which could potentially take an
Yeah,
entire vehicle.
I don't know what the solution is, but I can
Right,
imagine.
that was how come when we were looking at it, it was two on both sides in order to prevent a vehicle from being able to get all the way back there. And this now, like if JT was to back all the way up to it, it prevents him from trying to irrationally climb over and around back into the van, climb in and push stuff out. Because you'd have to climb up onto the Jersey barriers to do it. So this is promoting the hand loading, which is the recommendation of the insurance company. And then the happy benefit that our demo bins are properly loaded per Costella.
Michael, he has his hand raised again. Go ahead, Michael.
Yep, thank you. So can you guys, whoever's, maybe Melissa, you know this, the precise requirements given by the insurance company or what?
They want protective barriers up there to prevent people from going into the bin.
Okay, so the precise language is barrier, is that correct?
Correct. They
Do
did
you have
not
that
specify, they did not specify Jersey barrier, but they want something that would be effective. Those plastic.
So for instance, I'm just trying to get to the crux of the matter here. So what, do you have it in writing, what it is that they asked you to do?
Yes.
Okay, so do they say to create a barrier which will basically prevent a dump trailer or one-ton dump truck from unloading into the demo bin? Did they tell you to do that?
No.
Okay.
But
All right.
anything that's
So
okay.
no, all I need to know is if they asked you to do that. That's all. That's the question I'm asking. So, number one, putting Jersey barriers in front of those demo bins is not what is requested by your insurance company. Correct?
Not specifically, but by contract.
Okay, I don't mean to like argue over semantics, but it is important to have a public understanding of this process and know what's required and what's happened and all that sort of stuff. So it is my understanding, and I think Jeff can talk to this at great detail, that one of the big problems with those demo bins in the not so distant past has been not only the sort of poor filling of them and packing of them by contractors and day laborers and individuals who are out there not being paid to load the bins, but sort of blatant abuse. And by that I mean people who are accessing the transfer station off hours, during lunch hours when Jeff is not there, on weekends and in evening periods. It is also my understanding that it is fairly well known who these people are, where they're coming from, and what they're dumping. And I'm curious, has anything been done about that particular issue? What are the plans for that? Or the Jersey barrier sort of a quick fix to that problem? Is it just sort of it feels like it's punitive in a way. Because personally, I would like to be able to empty a dump trailer at the dump from time to time. And to have to hand unload all of that stuff. I mean, everybody in that room knows who I am. I don't have a lot of time to screw around and pick up, one handful of debris at a time, hanging over the side of a truck or a trailer, for spending that half day or whatever doing that. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's totally offensive, to be honest. And I think that this Jersey barrier situation is a really, really poor fix to a much greater problem.
What was your question again?
Well,
What would
my
you
question,
suggest?
excuse me?
I said, what would you suggest?
I would suggest if the insurance company isn't mandating Jersey barriers, that you figure out a different solution to the problem. And I think there's more than one problem that you're trying to deal with here. I think you're talking about inappropriate use or abuse of the demo bins. That's one problem that has to do with security of the transfer station on both points of access, both gates, having those locked at all times, unless Jeff is there, period.
I gotta speak up on that, Mike, and a lot of the stuff you brought up is pertinent.
Yeah.
You gotta consider, insurance companies work around OSHA and industrial situations, I mean, the town has to protect itself.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
I
No.
don't disagree with, your points of that. I think that we need clarification from the insurance company, and I think we need a better situation. I have guys going up there with the dump trailer, and we've had to unload ourselves, by hand. Yes,
Yeah.
it's not cost effective. I
No.
agree with you. Yes, we don't have the time to do that. However, we are on an island, and we are all trying to do the best we can with it. So I really think that this requires more time and more investigation. But I
Yes.
think getting upset at this point is not gonna get us to the point we're trying to get to. And I think we need to give them more time to figure out what works and get something in writing from the insurance company that says, okay, you can do this, but you can't do that. And let them specify what is required. And then we move from there, because that's gonna become a budgetary issue.
I totally
Mike,
agree.
If we bring the insurance company in and to have them actually walk us through exactly what they want, we will lose our demo bins entirely.
Yeah.
That is going to become a worse issue. Right now, we're working under their guidance. When we tell them that we want their specific input, I don't know about you guys, I don't like working with the government. I'm part of the government. They make it worse. When you're going through insurance that is just dealing with money, this is my educated experience with it. Being able to have our own dexterity with it without making them line it out. Because one of the suggestions that we were able to curtail with it was they wanted gates that one person operated for each individual time. And it was, oh, okay, well, that's not exactly feasible because, and kind of trailed off. But if we want to have them completely closed off with one person that stands there for operational safety, we're going to kneecap the island even greater with it, and it's going to cause a bigger time constraint.
I would just like to add, I'm not aware of the abuse going on in there after hours. Unfortunately, the back gate has to stay open during the day because Public Works goes in and out of there. If I had another place for Public Works garage to be, that would be one thing. And in the winter, of course, the snow plow, people have to go in there and get sand and salt. So it's not like I can just lock off that back gate versus putting a fence up along the end of the incline up to the guardrails. But my other concern is people going into the demo bins to pull out things, which we see. And I don't know why they don't understand. I'm gonna make sure new signs get up there that say no dumpster diving, no scavenging for that piece of wood that you think you need to have.
I do agree with Art. It seems like it is a broader conversation and something that perhaps we could bring to the public workshop. I know that both Dick and Josh have had their hands raised at different times and they're down now. Do you have anything that you would like to add now?
Yeah,
I
this
only
is
have-
Dick Kavanaugh.
Go
I was
ahead,
just gonna say that a number of transfer stations I've been to, they used a 3 or 4 inch welded pipe fence that a truck couldn't bowl over. It was open with 2 rails, so stuff could be slid through it. And the other thing I think it would do would allow the trucks or the vehicles to get significantly closer to the edge without being in danger than having to negotiate a Jersey barrier. That was my only thought.
Thanks, Dick.
Dick, was that a welded type fence that they just push the things through?
Through or over. I think you'll probably find your insurance company is going to specify a barrier of a certain height. So whether it's 3 feet or 4 feet, but I always found that like couches, you could tip it over, or small items could go right through it.
Right. Thank you.
Josh, anything from you?
I only had a question in regards to the Jersey barrier issue that we've been talking about. I know we've got, JT is one of them. If you were to have a 500 or 600 pound oil boiler in the back of your pickup truck and now you can't back up to it because of the barrier to knock it try to push it from the back of your truck into the dumpster. If I can't do that, who's to say I just don't back up far enough and leave it on the concrete and then leave it for Jeff to have to somehow get into the dumpster? It was like what was just mentioned with the steel pipes would be a great solution to that. And I wasn't sure weight wise how we wanted to go about that.
Right.
Well, for the camera.
Yeah, we'll find you.
Thanks, that is an important point and something that I'm sure will get talked about at the public workshop. I guess one other thought that I have that maybe could be discussed at the workshop, there's a lot to do there, but I guess the question is, does it make sense to think about having a town committee work on this? I know I hate suggesting a town committee just to have it, but at the same time, there are a number of different issues. There's been talks of compost bins at different at municipal compost. I just feel like there's a lot of different possibilities and a lot of there is a lot to unpack with this. So I'm not ready to ask for a motion. I'm just an idea that I guess I would ask people to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot to ask Janet and Melissa.
I would be opposed to a committee.
Michael. Oh, no, yeah.
Jeff.
Did you say you would be opposed or you wouldn't be opposed?
Why don't we go ahead, Jeff?
All right, I wouldn't be opposed to a committee as long as it's not going to be dragged out and prolonged and nothing ever gets accomplished from it.
Well, that's every committee.
When would that happen?
Why don't we set a timeline of 2 months and say, okay, the people that are really interested in this, albeit contractors, local people, however you want to look at it, let's get people together and let's make this happen. Because this is important to all of us, especially contractors on the island. So it's in our utmost interest to make this work.
It's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Do you remember why we didn't form a committee at that point?
Right.
I mean, I think that, I mean, we talked about it being a need and you were willing to do some research. I mean, I think to me, it's just grown. It's grown, the issue has grown beyond just how much we are charging, but really into how we use the space most effectively. And, it seems like a lot of different issues to address at either in an ad hoc way or at one particular meeting. So it feels like it could be helpful to have a group of people who are focused on it for this all.
And maybe having someone from the planning board involved as well, so that you get pieces at the same meeting.
Well, then I think that if that's kind of what we're leaning towards, instead of doing the public workshop on it, then not making me a part of it. And starting that way we can get the process going, as opposed to having a public workshop in 2 weeks and then establishing a committee.
Does that feel better for you?
Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with if you guys wanted to establish a committee and put it out for people that wanted to join it. That way Jeff and everybody can get moving forward on it faster.
Because I'd like to wait a little bit and think about that. I mean, I think it wouldn't hurt to have the public. I think that's that would be good.
Start with a public meeting and then at some point you'll realize, or we will realize that the committee would be a better way or the next way to go.
You don't know how many people you want in the committee, and you don't want it to be large and unruly. You
Public
wanna have a
meeting, you'll find out who's seriously interested, like Art was talking about, you know,
Right.
Okay, anything else on?
Quick question regarding the Jersey barriers. Quick question, is the insurance concerned about our convenience and our ability to throw stuff into the dumpsters? Or are they concerned about the safety of the people? So regardless of how this plays out, we basically should, I'm with Melissa here. If we start asking the definitive answer from the insurance company, they're gonna tell you their best case scenario, which is gonna make it even harder for anybody to dump stuff in. Is that correct?
I mean,
Require it. So perhaps we should, just from my own personal opinion, like consider ourselves lucky that we have found this middle ground, and while it's slightly inconveniencing, it could be far more of an inconvenience, and that we should really be careful how we proceed with pushing for the actual, what we truly need, because what they're gonna say is safety, not convenience, and that's gonna, you know, right?
That may be true. Dick Kavanaugh mentioned something that seemed to be both safe and acceptable insurance companies and more convenient to the contractors. So I think there's some more to explore.
Yeah, I mean, I would struggle to see how having a lower barrier would make them any happier. So, you know, like just having something that can stop wheels, I don't know how, but that can be for another meeting or another committee or another.
And we can always put it to them and ask them.
But
road trip, let's go look at, well, I know Jordy did go to China. He went to China to look at the curtains first.
Did you have to send the insurance company a picture of the Jersey barriers in place?
No, not yet, no, because this is my 5 or 6 page list from 2 years ago, I think.
Right, no, well, that's right.
I'm
that's-
still working on
Because
it.
that's how we lost our playground, and that's how we've lost so many different things. is
Well, I
because-
didn't lose it, it was just.
Right, and how it got
unsafe.
I know,
Right.
but so we're just trying to keep them away.
Right, no, I
And so-
completely agree, and I think you wanna be very careful when you ask, but it seems like there may be ways that we can thread the needle.
And these are not
Understanding.
permanent, they can be moved, if they leave there, I'm gonna bring them right out front of the town office and put them in front of the deck, which people still like to.
Right. And the good news is, I mean, it's brought more people out than many other things, so it's always nice to hear.
Oh, he's already summed it out for you.
Okay, anything else on Jersey barriers? Okay, new business, request from Richard and Kevin Silly for permission to leave the grill at Griddle Point year round and for a 3-year lease. Yes, go ahead.
You can go first.
They knew that was on the agenda today, right? I thought. that
Yes,
they
I
wanted to
emailed
be here.
Yep.
Okay.
I think they had a grandbaby issue. Is the last thing that I had heard. My question is, because right now they're having to pay fees and different things every year for it. could we install, if we decided to go through with this, would they be okay with paying the 3 years? That way we weren't losing the annual money on it. Like if they're paying $50 a year, then it'd be $150 now. And so,
It's $500 a year. Well, that's what it has been. That's what they had put a bid in for.
right,
The only thing doing this, it locks up the space for 3 years, you know, and I think the selectmen always, well, not always, but I know especially when Dave was on early on, and they just felt like, because it used to run for a year, the term. Then they said, well, let's shorten it up to May through September, October, the period of time that they actually were open. And then that would have the winter months, if someone else wanted to come up with a plan to present, they would have that time to create that or look into it or get interested in it. Right now, if they have it for 3 years, there's no incentive for someone else, unless you want to change the ordinance down there that says the lease says one concession stand. They're saying, so there's no competition for them anymore. Their lease, so.
Would, change their licensing though? I'm looking at the highlighted stuff in the lease, and it does specifically mention a mobile lunch wagon, and if it's left there, covered by a tarp, that would then make it no longer a mobile lunch wagon, right? The concept of mobile is that you are able to.
Right.
Drop them down. So then would they then have to go back and reapply for a different license, and then what would that?
I don't know if it would involve the planning board, because it's on wheels. There's always a tricky thing with trailers. and
Yeah,
they register
it's
that
kind of-
Trailer.
You know, triggering something for me, the planning board might not like it to stay there for that long. It might not be, in agreement with our ordinances.
My thought about it is, I mean, I feel like we signed a 1-year lease that is ending October 1st. I'm not necessarily conceptually opposed to having a 3-year lease in the future. I mean, I think if somebody wants to make an investment in a food truck, I can see from a business owner's perspective that it would be helpful to know that you have some kind of continuity. I think the mobility is another issue. To me, it seems like, from a process perspective, I don't know that I support changing a lease last minute rather than, seeing if there are amendments that we want to make in a lease that we would enter into next year, rather than just kind of continuing the 3-year lease now. I don't know how.
Yep.
do you have anything that says? And this is probably a select board, or no, the other board question. Since we have them, since it is only from May 23rd to October 1st, could a different lunch wagon, is that what? Yeah, the different lunch wagon go in and operate at Grindle Point between October 1st and May in the
Yeah, that
winter?
would be nice.
But no, I mean, could they?
Yeah.
But if they lock down a 3-year lease, would that then prevent somebody else?
From coming in the winter.
Unless you specified that.
So you still have to move.
They should move
come
it,
back.
yeah. Because someone else would come in there.
Cause that's like the only spot that they're supposed to operate out of, right? Is the spot right there next to the ferry, or does it matter?
That's about the only, unless you don't want to take up it, lose any parking spot.
Right, you don't want to lose any green space. I just wasn't sure.
Does the ordinance define the length of time that sits there?
It does not.
Just the
Okay.
lease agreement.
Just lease agreement.
But it does require them to move it.
It doesn't specify that in the lease.
But the ordinance would specify that they have to move it every.
I'm not sure, there might be something in the ordinance.
I mean, there's,
Well, the lease only runs for a certain period, it would stand to reason that they would be expected to remove it, but it's at several places, restarts.
Years ago, who remembered Marty Different? All right, years ago, she made Don Simon, and Maggie would remember this if she's still on there. She made him drive the van out of the parking lot and move it around, because it was supposed to be moved every week or something. I don't know, that's like, well, that's what's in my back. Not that.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess what I would recommend is, I would not be opposed to amendments to future lease agreements, but I would suggest that this year we ask that it be removed and that we honor the one-year lease that has been signed.
That'd give us time to.
Yeah, to really wrap our heads around it.
Yeah.
Is anybody willing to make that motion? Second?
It's okay out there.
Who's second? Glad you checked, Bill.
I'm skeptical about it because as somebody who is in the food business and also operates a mobile operation that would eventually like to expand, I fear that I should not vote one way or the other, because I don't want to make it look like I'm voting strictly to my best interest. So I don't know if I should second that motion or if I should vote on this at all. And I would leave that to your opinions as some people who've been here far longer than I have for this position. So.
The safest thing would be to abstain. If
Perfect,
that's
then I would
okay.
prefer to do so.
Yeah.
But I should not second that.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Transparency is important.
Is there anybody else who would want to second that motion?
Motion is to not change the
decline this request until closer to, or to ask them to bring it back next year, at the beginning of their lease.
Thank you. Right, that any amendments would be made for a new lease rather than amending the current lease agreement.
Gotcha. That was my motion.
Second.
Discussion. Have they ever had a longer than 1 year lease, specifically the snack shack?
No one has. It's always been annual. It might have been the same person,
Right.
but. I mean, not in my time. I don't remember anybody. It's been a lot of different people down there. Don Simon probably was the longest one that was there.
Okay.
After that,
Hot dog lady's been there.
Heidi and Ronnie were there.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I worked there.
Yep, Candace Mead.
Yeah.
The, McLaughlin's.
That was one summer, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so no one in the history of this has ever had anything longer than a 1 year term.
Correct.
Okay. That helps me out greatly. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Staying. Okay. Any other business? Next up, approve the warrant, number 7. Anyone? Motion, please.
I moved.
Right.
I moved.
Have a good night.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Michael.
Moved and seconded?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Who's second? I'm sorry.
Me.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
No appointments, and I have no further comments. Thanks for hanging in, everybody.
No comments as well.
Nope. Phil,
I'm done. Thank you.
Melissa?
Senior night, Friday, last home varsity soccer game, junior class fundraising in full swing. People should be at Matty Dodge Friday night.
Friday night lights. We got lights.
Let me ask you something. Is for the junior class auction, are they accepting in items now?
You're good, you're good.
Hour 13 of it was my house, and that's-
Motion to adjourn?
I know, I
Thank you,
had a
second.
really.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging in with us.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Peter, Maggie.
Made up for the old.
I know, I'm sorry.
I knew it was.
We're done. I thought
That was
something
good. Very good.
Oh, because you were so long? Oh.